She caught her husband's mistress flaunting a Rolls Royce. But what the mistress didn't know, the wife owns it all. Would she walk away quietly or take back everything? Stay tuned, because you are about to watch a story of betrayal, sweet revenge, and a powerful comeback. Hello, family. Welcome to Storytime Mutually. Kindly subscribe to my channel for more interesting stories. Like and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Your support and engagement encourage me to post more videos. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. Sophie Carter had built a life that many would envy. She was successful, admired, and living in the heart of Atlanta, a city where dreams were meant to come true. At just 31, she was the founder and CEO of her own fashion brand, Sophie Styles, which had quickly become one of the most popular and well-known names in the industry. Celebrities wore her designs, and everyday women were eager to get their hands on the latest pieces. Her brand was growing every day, and so was her influence. But despite the external success, Sophie often felt like something was missing. She wasn't just a businesswoman, she was a wife. She had been married to Marcus Carter for 3 years. They seemed like the perfect couple. They made appearances together at parties, dressed in their best clothes, smiling for cameras. Sophie was often seen on his arm, and he was always there beside her, looking sharp in his tailored suits. On the surface, they appeared happy and in love. But underneath all the smiles and perfect photos, Sophie had started to feel a distance growing between them. Marcus was charming, no doubt. He was tall, with deep brown eyes that could melt anyone's heart. His smile was contagious, and his confidence was what had drawn Sophie to him in the first place. He had a way with people, always making everyone around him feel special. But for the last few months, Sophie had noticed a change. His late nights, his phone that he never let out of his sight, and the way he seemed to be always distracted, it all added up. Sophie wasn't naive. She had seen the signs, but she refused to believe them. She had trusted Marcus. She loved him. She wanted to believe that their marriage was solid, that everything was fine, but deep down, her instincts were telling her something was wrong. The house they lived in was beautiful and elegant, 2-story home on the outskirts of Atlanta. The interior was a perfect reflection of their lifestyle, luxurious, yet warm. Sophie had put her heart into making the place a home, with carefully chosen furniture, soft lighting, and family photos framed on every wall. Marcus, on the other hand, was more focused on the brand-new sports cars in the garage and the newest high-end watch that he had been eyeing for months. Their Rolls Royce, a sleek black one, was Sophie's pride and joy. She had bought it under her company's name, SC Holdings, a small but clever trick to keep her personal wealth separate from Marcus's expectations. He never knew the true owner of the car. It was always theirs, in his mind. She let him drive it because it made him happy, even though it wasn't really his to begin with.
She didn't mind.
She loved the car, and it was hers after all. But lately, the car had become a symbol of something else. Sophie had started to wonder if Marcus was taking more than just the luxury items she had given him. Was he taking her trust? Her love? Her sense of security? One afternoon, after a long meeting with her team, Sophie sat in her office sipping a cup of hot tea, trying to relax. Her phone buzzed on the desk, pulling her from her thoughts. A new notification popped up on Instagram. It was a message from an unknown account. "Hey, we need to talk about Marcus. You should know what he's been up to." Sophie's heart skipped. She stared at the message, unsure of what to think. Who was this? What did they mean by what he's been up to? She clicked on the profile. The woman's name was Bella. She had a face full of makeup, platinum blonde hair, and the kind of smile that could melt a man's heart. Sophie scrolled through the account. The pictures were mostly selfies in expensive restaurants, in fancy hotel rooms, and with expensive gifts. But one post stood out. A video. Bella was sitting in the driver's seat of Sophie's Rolls Royce, laughing and flipping her hair back. She was clearly enjoying herself, like it was her car. Her caption read, "When you ask for the best, and your man delivers. Only the finest for me, baby." Sophie felt a sharp pang in her chest. She didn't have to read the comments to know what they were saying. Bella had been driving her car. Not only was she sitting in Sophie's place, but she was also boasting about it like it was her own. Sophie couldn't move. Her mind was spinning. She had trusted Marcus. She had shared everything with him. And now here was proof that he was seeing someone else and flaunting it. It wasn't just a fling or a mistake. This was deliberate. He had been keeping secrets from her. Sophie's fingers trembled as she tapped on the screen, opening Bella's direct message. I know what's going on, Sophie. You should know that Marcus and I have been seeing each other for a while. He told me that you were fine with it. Sophie blinked. The message was cold and direct, like a slap in the face. Sophie's first instinct was to cry, but she held back the tears. She wouldn't let Marcus see her broken. Not this time. She stood up and walked over to the large window in her office. The view of Atlantis stretched out before her, beautiful, sprawling, and full of opportunities. She had built this life. She had worked hard for everything she had, and she wasn't going to let Marcus or anyone take that away from her. With a deep breath, Sophie sent a message back to Bella. Thank you for the information, but you've made one mistake. You think you're the only one who knows how to play the game. Sophie's phone buzzed again. It was a message from her lawyer, confirming an urgent meeting the following day. She stared at it for a moment, her heart still pounding from the shock of Bella's message. But she knew she had to focus. She couldn't let emotions cloud her judgment, not now. She had a life to protect. She had worked too hard to let everything slip away. She sat back down at her desk and stared out the window once more. The city of Atlantis seemed so far away, like it didn't matter anymore. All that mattered now was what she was going to do about Marcus. Her fingers hovered over her phone. She wanted to call him, ask him what was going on, demand an explanation. But she knew better. The moment Marcus sensed she was upset, he would spin some story, tell her it was a misunderstanding, and everything would go back to normal, or at least, that's what he always hoped. Sophie wasn't in the mood for more lies. Not this time. She locked her phone and walked to the kitchen. The bright lights of her spacious home seemed dimmer today, like the joy had been sucked out of every room. She opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water, and drank it slowly, trying to calm her nerves. But it wasn't working. Her mind was racing. Why would he do this? She whispered to herself. What's wrong with me? Why wasn't I enough? It wasn't just the betrayal that hurt. It was the way Marcus had treated her, like she was invisible. How could he flaunt his affair so carelessly? How could he throw everything they had built together away without a second thought? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the front door opening. Sophie immediately recognized the noise. Marcus was home. He always made his entrance with a confident stride, his footsteps echoing through the hallway. Sophie took a deep breath, her grip tightening around the bottle of water. She wasn't going to cry. She wasn't going to let him see her vulnerable. She had been strong for so long. It was time to take control. She walked toward the living room, where Marcus had just entered, removing his jacket and tossing it onto the couch. He looked up when he saw her standing there, his face lighting up with that familiar smile. But this time, it didn't reach his eyes. Hey, babe, he said casually, as if everything was normal. How was your day? Sophie crossed her arms, her voice calm but firm. We need to talk. Marcus froze for a moment, a flicker of nervousness in his eyes before he quickly covered it up with a smile. Sure, what's going on? Sophie didn't waste time. She pulled out her phone and opened the message from Bella. She showed it to him without saying a word. Marcus's face turned pale as he read the text. For a moment he was silent. Sophie could see the wheels turning in his mind, as if he was trying to figure out how to talk his way out of it. Look, Sophie, I can explain, he stammered. It's not what you think. Sophie narrowed her eyes. Then explain it to me, Marcus. How is it that Bella is driving my Rolls Royce and claiming you've been seeing her for months? You've been lying to me, haven't you? Marcus took a step forward, his hands raised in a gesture of calm. Listen, it's complicated. Bella and there's nothing serious. It's just been a fling, all right? I didn't want to hurt you. I swear, you're the one I care about. Sophie felt a coldness wash over her. The words stung more than she expected. A fling? A fling that's been going on behind my back for how long? And you thought I wouldn't find out. She stepped back, trying to steady herself. Her pulse was racing, and her chest felt tight. You lied to me, Marcus. You used me. And I don't know who you think I am, but I'm not some fool who's going to pretend this is okay. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, frustration building. I made a mistake. But we can fix this, Sophie. I promise we can work through it. You and me were strong. We've been through worse. Sophie shook her head slowly. No, Marcus. I've been through enough. She turned to walk away, but then stopped herself. She needed to say this. For her own peace of mind. The truth is, I never knew who you really were. Maybe I was too blind to see it, but now I know. And I'm done pretending. Marcus's eyes narrowed. So, what? You're just going to give up on us? On everything we built together? Sophie's voice trembled with a mix of anger and pain. You gave up on us the moment you decided to lie and cheat. You didn't just hurt me, Marcus. You disrespected everything we had. And now you want me to fix it? No. I'm done. She turned and walked out of the living room, not looking back. She needed space, time to think, and time to make a decision that would change everything. As Sophie entered her office and closed the door behind her, she felt the weight of her decision settle in. She had made up her mind. There was no going back now. Later that evening, Sophie spent the next few hours making phone calls, arranging meetings with her lawyer and business partners. She was determined to take control of her life. She couldn't rely on Marcus any longer. She had everything she needed: strength, intelligence, and a business empire that was hers to protect. But as the evening wore on, Sophie couldn't help but feel the emptiness creeping in. The house was so quiet, and her thoughts kept drifting back to Marcus. She wondered if he was sitting alone in the living room, sulking, or if he was out with Bella, pretending everything was fine. It didn't matter anymore. Sophie picked up her phone and texted her lawyer. Let's move forward with the separation. I want it done as soon as possible. Her lawyer replied quickly. Understood. I'll arrange the meeting for tomorrow. Sophie felt a sense of relief wash over her. The decision had been made. It was over. And no matter how hard it hurt, she knew this was the best choice for her future. She walked over to the window and looked out at the city once more, feeling a spark of hope rising within her. This was the beginning of something new. A future where she was in control. A future where she could finally breathe easy. And for the first time in months, Sophie allowed herself a small smile. The following morning, Sophie woke up earlier than usual. She had always been a morning person, but today was different. Today, she felt a sense of determination that she hadn't felt in a long time. She looked out of her bedroom window and saw the sun rising over the city, the light reflecting off the tall buildings. For the first time in days, Sophie felt a glimmer of hope. It was a small spark, but it was enough to remind her that she was capable of so much more than she had allowed herself to believe. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, breaking her thoughts. It was a text from her lawyer. The meeting is set for 10 a.m. today. We'll discuss everything you need to know about the separation and moving forward. Sophie sighed with a mix of relief and anxiety. She knew this was the right decision, but it didn't make the process any easier. The idea of ending her marriage, especially after everything she had built with Marcus, was still hard to accept. But the more she thought about it, the clearer it became. She couldn't live a life full of lies and betrayal anymore. She quickly got dressed in a comfortable outfit, black slacks, a simple white blouse, and her favorite pair of flats. It wasn't much, but she felt better knowing she was making a choice for herself, not for Marcus, not for anyone else. By the time Sophie arrived at her lawyer's office, she was feeling a bit more grounded. The building was tall, modern, and sleek, just like Sophie liked things. It was a place where decisions were made, a place where control was in her hands. She entered the office and was greeted by her lawyer, Mr. Anderson, a middle-aged man with glasses and a calm, reassuring smile. "Good morning, Sophie," he said, offering her a seat. "Good morning, Mr. Anderson," Sophie replied, sitting down. She tried to keep her voice steady, but it wavered slightly. I've gathered all the necessary documents for the separation, Mr. Anderson continued, sliding a folder across the desk to her. We'll start by making sure everything is divided fairly and that you retain full control of your business assets. As for the Rolls Royce, I've already prepared the paperwork to have it officially transferred under your name, as we discussed. Sophie nodded. The car was important to her, not because of the money or the luxury, but because it symbolized the life she had worked so hard to build. It wasn't Marcus's, it was hers, and she was determined to keep it that way. I also contacted your financial advisor, Mr. Anderson continued. We'll ensure that your investments and accounts are properly secured. I'll also take care of the legal side of things regarding Marcus's debts. We'll make sure he doesn't have access to any of your personal accounts or business funds. Sophie took a deep breath, feeling the weight of it all pressing down on her shoulders. The divorce process wasn't just about emotions, it was also about protecting everything she had worked for. She had to be smart, strong, and prepared for whatever came next. Thank you, Mr. Anderson, she said, her voice firmer now. I just want this to be over. I need to move on. I understand, he replied with a nod. It won't be easy, but I'll be here to guide you every step of the way. By the time Sophie left the lawyer's office, her head was spinning with legal details, financial talk, and the overwhelming realization that her life was changing in ways she hadn't fully grasped. But there was a sense of clarity in her heart. She wasn't going to let Marcus or anyone else stand in the way of her future. She would rebuild, and this time, it would be on her terms. As she drove home in her Rolls Royce, Sophie thought about the conversation she had had with Marcus just the night before. He had tried to apologize, tried to convince her that everything would be okay. But deep down, Sophie knew there was no going back. Marcus had crossed a line that couldn't be undone. When she got home, she went straight to her office. It was her sanctuary, the place where she could think clearly and make decisions that mattered. She sat down at her desk and opened her laptop. It was time to focus on her business. Sophie had always loved designing clothes, creating something beautiful from nothing. Now, she would focus on that passion more than ever before. She pulled up the latest sales reports, checking the numbers for her new collection. Her team had been working hard on their latest line, and Sophie couldn't help but feel proud of the progress they had made. Sophie Styles was growing, and she was still in control. Suddenly, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Daniel. I hope you're doing okay. I just wanted to remind you that you're stronger than you think. I'm here if you need to talk. Take care of yourself. Sophie smiled at the message, feeling a warmth in her chest. Daniel had been a constant support since their first meeting, and his kindness was something she hadn't expected, but was incredibly grateful for. She typed back quickly. Thank you, Daniel. Your words mean a lot to me right now. Before she could press send, her phone rang. It was an unknown number. Sophie hesitated for a moment, but answered anyway. Hello. Sophie. The voice on the other end was familiar, but it made her blood run cold. It was Marcus. What do you want? She asked, keeping her voice steady. I need to see you, he said urgently. We need to talk. There's so much more you don't know. Please, just give me a chance to explain. Sophie's heart raced. I don't want to talk to you, Marcus. Not right now. I've made up my mind. I want a divorce. There was a long silence on the other end. Sophie could almost feel Marcus's frustration seeping through the phone. Please, Sophie. Don't do this. I can't lose you. Sophie clenched her fists. She had heard this before, the begging, the promises. But she wasn't going to fall for it again. She had heard enough. I've made my decision, she said firmly. Goodbye, Marcus. Without waiting for a response, Sophie hung up. Her hands were shaking slightly, but she felt a sense of relief wash over her. She had taken control of the situation, and it felt empowering. She turned her attention back to her work. The day was still young, and she had so much to do. There was no time to waste. That evening, after a long day of work, Sophie sat in her living room with a glass of wine in her hand. She looked around the room, taking in the familiar sights. Her home, once shared with Marcus, now felt like her own again. She could finally breathe. For the first time in a long while, Sophie allowed herself to relax. She didn't have to pretend anymore. She didn't have to live in fear of Marcus's lies. She was free. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a message from her lawyer. Everything is in motion. The divorce papers will be filed tomorrow. You're taking the right steps, Sophie. Sophie smiled softly and texted back. Thank you. I'm ready for the next chapter. As she set her phone down, Sophie looked out the window. The city below was still as beautiful as ever, but tonight it felt different. Tonight it felt like a new beginning. The days following Sophie's meeting with her lawyer were a blur. She kept herself busy with work, using her fashion line as a distraction from the painful truth she had been facing. But no matter how many emails she answered or designs she reviewed, her mind couldn't fully escape the reality of her marriage falling apart. She had always thought her life would be different. She had worked so hard to get where she was. She had trusted Marcus with everything, her heart, her dreams, her business. Yet, here she was alone, sorting through the mess he had left behind. She didn't regret her decision to move forward with a divorce, but there were moments when the weight of it all felt unbearable. That night, after a long day of meetings, Sophie sat at her kitchen table with a cup of tea, staring at the flickering candlelight in front of her. The soft glow created a calm atmosphere, but it couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in her chest. She had made the right decision, but her heart was still heavy. Her phone buzzed on the table, interrupting her thoughts. It was a message from Daniel. I was thinking about you today. I hope you're holding up okay. Remember, you're not alone in this. I'm here for you. Sophie smiled softly. Daniel's kindness had been a constant source of comfort for her. She had grown to appreciate his genuine concern and the way he always seemed to know when she needed someone to talk to. She quickly typed a response. Thank you, Daniel. You really are a good friend. It's just hard sometimes, you know? There's so much I didn't see. I feel like I've been living in a lie for so long. Her phone buzzed again, almost immediately. I understand. It's tough, but you're stronger than you know. You've got this, Sophie. Reading his words brought a sense of calm to Sophie. She took a deep breath, trying to gather the strength to move forward. The pain of the betrayal was still there, but Daniel's encouragement reminded her that she had the power to rise above it. The following morning, Sophie woke up to the sound of her phone buzzing again. This time, it was a reminder from her lawyer about the finalization of the divorce papers. Sophie had made it clear that she was ready to move on, and now, everything was falling into place. The papers would be filed that afternoon, and her life would begin anew. But before she could even think about the paperwork, there was another issue on her mind. Marcus. The night before, he had called her again, begging for a second chance. Sophie had ignored the call, not wanting to hear more of his lies. But deep down, she knew that he wasn't going to give up that easily. Marcus always had a way of making everything seem like it could be fixed. He was good at that, manipulating situations to make them look like something they weren't. Sophie wasn't going to fall for it this time. She decided to go for a walk. A quiet stroll would help clear her mind and allow her to think through the next steps. The morning air was cool as she stepped outside, her thoughts swirling with uncertainty. She could hear the sound of birds chirping and the distant hum of traffic, but it was all distant, faint, like everything was happening on the other side of a foggy window. Sophie walked aimlessly for a while, her mind racing. Should she confront Marcus again? Should she demand more answers? A small part of her still wanted closure, but she knew that no matter how many answers she got, it wouldn't change what had already happened. She needed to let go. She stopped at a small park, sitting on one of the benches. The peacefulness of the surroundings soothed her nerves. As she sat there, her phone buzzed again. It was Marcus. She almost didn't answer, but something inside her urged her to. She picked up the phone and pressed it to her ear. Sophie. Marcus's voice came through, rough and desperate. I've been trying to reach you. We need to talk. Please, just hear me out. I know I messed up, but I'm not ready to lose you. Sophie's heart tightened, but she steadied herself. Marcus, I don't want to hear it. You've said enough. It's over. There was silence on the other end for a long moment. Sophie could hear him breathing, but he didn't say anything. She knew he was struggling, but she also knew that she couldn't let his guilt or charm manipulate her any longer. "Do you really think I could ever trust you again?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. "I found out about you and Bella. You lied to me, Marcus. And I can't live like that anymore." "I'm sorry," he said softly, his voice breaking. "I was stupid. I never wanted to hurt you." Sophie took a deep breath. "I don't need your apologies. I need to move on. I deserve better than this." For a moment, she thought he might try to say more, but instead, there was a long pause. Finally, he spoke again. "I just hope you know that I always loved you. Maybe I was just too selfish to see it." Sophie felt a pang of sadness, but it didn't change anything. "Goodbye, Marcus." She ended the call before he could say another word, her heart racing but her mind clear. She had done it. She had finally stood up for herself. She didn't need his love or his apology. She needed her own peace. That afternoon, Sophie went to her office and sat at her desk, staring at the divorce papers in front of her. It felt surreal. After all the years of marriage, all the memories, it all came down to this, her signing her name and moving forward. She took a deep breath and picked up the pen. With each stroke of her pen, Sophie felt lighter. This was her moment. She was closing one chapter of her life and opening a new one. A better one. Her phone buzzed again, but this time, it wasn't Marcus. It was Daniel. "Just wanted to check in on you. How's everything going?" Sophie smiled and typed back. "It's going well. The papers are being filed today. It's a big step, but I'm ready. Thank you, Daniel. Your support has meant more than you know." Daniel's reply came quickly. "I'm proud of you, Sophie. You've got this. Don't ever forget that." Sophie put her phone down and looked out of the window. She was proud of herself. For the first time in a long while, Sophie felt strong. She wasn't broken. She wasn't lost. She was a woman on a mission, ready to take on whatever life threw her way. And with that, Sophie took another step toward her new future. The day after Sophie signed the divorce papers, she woke up feeling different. For the first time in months, her chest didn't feel heavy when she opened her eyes. She stretched slowly, then rolled over in bed and smiled. It's really over, she thought. I'm free. She took a long, hot shower, humming a soft tune as the water ran down her skin. After dressing in her favorite silk blouse and tailored trousers, she poured herself a fresh cup of coffee and sat on her balcony, watching the morning traffic below. The city of Brighton felt alive today.
So, did she?
As she was sipping her coffee, her phone buzzed again. Daniel, I know a great restaurant downtown. You deserve a good lunch after everything you've been through. What do you say? Sophie's eyes lit up. She hesitated for a moment, then smiled and replied, Sophie, that sounds lovely. Pick me up at noon. Daniel, absolutely. She chuckled softly to herself. After everything, a nice lunch with a kind man was exactly what she needed. 2 hours later, Daniel arrived at her building right on time. He was waiting by his car, dressed casually in a blue button-down shirt and jeans. He smiled when he saw her walking toward him. You look beautiful, Sophie, he said. And you look well-fed, Sophie teased, laughing. Daniel laughed too. What can I say? Heartbreak hasn't touched my appetite. They drove through the city, chatting about small things, music, movies, the latest fashion shows. Sophie felt herself relaxing more than she had in weeks. She hadn't realized how much she missed just laughing, just being herself. But as they were approaching the restaurant, Sophie suddenly saw something that made her heart jump. Right there, parked in front of a shopping mall, her Rolls Royce. And leaning against the car, dressed in a tight red dress with bright red heels, was Bella, Marcus's mistress. Bella had a big smile on her face, holding a phone in the air, clearly recording herself. People were looking at her, some even snapping pictures. She was posing and spinning in front of the car like it was her own. Is that? Daniel asked, squinting through the windshield. Sophie stared, her mouth slightly open.
Yes.
That's Bella. And that's my car. Daniel pulled over. Wanna stop? Sophie's eyes narrowed. Oh yes. Let's stop. Sophie stepped out of the car slowly, adjusting her sunglasses as she walked confidently toward Bella. People were still watching the scene as Bella flipped her hair and laughed into her phone, completely unaware of what was coming. "Excuse me," Sophie said loudly, stepping into Bella's little stage. Bella turned, annoyed. "Can't you see I'm busy?" Sophie smiled politely. "Busy pretending to own a car that doesn't belong to you?" Bella froze. Her smile dropped. "What are you talking about?" "This Rolls Royce," Sophie said, patting the hood gently, "is mine." Bella blinked. "Marcus gave it to me." Sophie laughed. "Marcus doesn't own this car. He never did. It's registered in my name. I paid for it. I have the papers to prove it." People around them started whispering. Bella's face turned pale. "That's not possible. He said it was his." Sophie took a step closer and dropped her voice. "Well, he lied. Just like he lied about loving you. But don't worry. He lies to everyone." Bella's lips trembled as she looked around, realizing people were still filming. The glamorous moment she had planned had turned into a public embarrassment. "Have a lovely day, Bella," Sophie said sweetly, before turning to Daniel. "Shall we?" Daniel opened the passenger door for her with a proud smile. "You handled that like a queen." Sophie winked. "I am the queen. I just forgot for a while." Over lunch, Sophie and Daniel laughed about the scene. "I can't believe she was parading the car in public," Daniel said, shaking his head. "That was wild." "She thought she was untouchable," Sophie replied, sipping her drink. "But today, she got a taste of the truth. And honestly, that was better than dessert." They both laughed again. But after the laughter faded, Daniel looked at Sophie seriously. "You're stronger than most people I know. I hope you know that." Sophie smiled. "I do now." Then she looked at him. "Daniel, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why have you been so kind to me through all of this?" He looked at her for a long moment, then said softly, "Because I see the real you. And I like her. A lot." Sophie's heart skipped a beat. For a moment, she didn't say anything. She just stared at him, trying to find the right words. But the truth was, she liked him too. A lot. Sophie couldn't stop smiling as she looked at Daniel. His words repeated in her mind like a soft song. "Because I see the real you. And I like her. A lot." It had been a long time since anyone had looked at her that way, not with pity, not with judgment, but with honest admiration. And she liked it. No, she loved it. She looked down at her plate, then back at him. "I don't know what to say." Daniel leaned closer. "You don't have to say anything now. I just wanted you to know how I feel. I'll wait for you as long as it takes." Sophie felt her heart warm. For the first time in months, maybe even years, she felt seen. Not as someone's wife. Not as a businesswoman. Just as Sophie, a woman who had loved, been hurt, and was now finding her way back. They finished their meal, sharing jokes and laughing like old friends. Daniel didn't push or pressure her.
He was just there.
And that meant more than he knew. Later that evening, when Sophie got home, the house felt different. Not lonely. Not quiet. Just peaceful. She took off her heels, made a cup of chamomile tea, and sat on the sofa. She opened her laptop and went through some business emails, but her thoughts kept drifting back to Daniel. What if this is the beginning of something real? What if I deserve love again? Just then, her phone buzzed. Another message from Daniel. "Daniel, I had a great time today. Thank you for letting me in, even just a little." Sophie smiled and replied, "Sophie, thank you for being patient. I didn't know how much I needed today until it happened." Her fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment, then she added, "Sophie, maybe we could do it again sometime, just the two of us. No past, no drama." Daniel replied almost instantly, "Daniel, it's a date." The next morning, Sophie walked into her office wearing a soft yellow dress, light makeup, and a fresh confidence. Her assistant, Layla, looked up and blinked.
"Wow, Sophie.
You look happy." Sophie laughed. "Is it that obvious?" Layla grinned.
Yes.
"And I like it. What happened?" You look like someone who just got her crown back. Sophie chuckled. Let's just say, I remembered who I am. She sat at her desk and started going through her business plans. It was time to focus on herself again. Her fashion label, Lennox Designs, had been running well, but she had bigger dreams. International shows, celebrity clients, a new collection inspired by her journey. And she was going to make it happen. Meanwhile, across town, Marcus was not having a good morning. He sat alone in his apartment, staring at the TV but not watching it. Bella had stopped talking to him after the scene with the Rolls Royce. The internet was flooded with videos of her being publicly embarrassed. She had blamed him. His phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number.
Shame.
You lost a queen. Marcus stared at the screen, feeling a mix of anger and regret. He had played a foolish game and lost the best woman he ever had. A week later, Daniel and Sophie met again. This time for dinner. It was quiet and simple, just a cozy Italian restaurant with soft music and candles. Sophie wore a navy blue dress and had her hair tied in a loose bun. Daniel looked at her like she was the most beautiful woman in the world. I feel like I've known you forever, he said softly, after they had eaten. Funny, Sophie replied. I feel the same. But at the same time, I feel like I'm just getting to know me again, too. Daniel reached across the table and gently held her hand. Then let's discover you together. Her eyes shimmered with emotion. After everything she had been through, the lies, the betrayal, the heartbreak, this simple moment felt like magic. They walked out of the restaurant under the night sky, the stars twinkling above them. Daniel took her hand again, and this time, she didn't pull away. They walked slowly, no rush, just feeling the peace between them. When they reached her building, Daniel turned to her. Can I kiss you? Sophie paused, then slowly nodded. It was a gentle kiss.
Soft. Warm. Honest.
The kind of kiss that didn't need words. When they pulled apart, Sophie whispered, Thank you for showing me that love doesn't always hurt. Daniel smiled. Thank you for giving it another chance. Sophie stood by her window the next morning, watching the golden sunrise over the brightened skyline. A soft smile played on her lips. Her heart felt calm, her mind at peace. So much had changed in just a few weeks. She had walked away from a toxic marriage, faced the woman who tried to humiliate her, took back her confidence, and now she was falling in love again, with someone kind, someone honest. She looked at her phone and saw Daniel's message waiting. Daniel, good morning, beautiful. Just wanted you to know I'm thinking about you. Have a great day. Sophie pressed the phone gently to her chest and smiled. Life finally felt right again. Later that afternoon, Sophie was invited to speak at a women's empowerment event in Brighton. It was held at a large hall packed with businesswomen, students, and dreamers. Her assistant, Layla, stood proudly by her side. As Sophie stepped onto the stage, the applause made her heart swell. She looked around at the crowd and began. Not long ago, I forgot who I was. I allowed someone else to shrink my light. I gave too much of myself to a man who never truly saw me. But today, I stand here, not as someone's wife, not as someone's ex, but as the real owner of my life. The room went quiet as her words sank in. She continued, Never let anyone make you feel small. Never forget your worth. And never be afraid to start over. Sometimes, walking away is the bravest thing you can do. The hall burst into applause. Sophie wiped a small tear from her eye. This moment wasn't just for the audience. It was for her too. After the event, a young woman approached her and said, You're the woman from that video, right? The one with the Rolls Royce. Sophie laughed softly. Yes, that was me. You inspired me, the girl said. You didn't fight or scream. You just stood tall. I want to be like that one day. Sophie gave her a warm hug. You already are. 1 week later, Marcus requested to meet Sophie. At first, she wasn't sure. But then she thought, why not? Closure isn't for him. It's for me. They met at a quiet coffee shop. Marcus looked like a shadow of the man he used to be. Tired, pale, and unsure of himself. You look well, he said, trying to smile. I am well, Sophie replied, calm and confident. There was an awkward silence. Then Marcus leaned forward. I was a fool. I lost the best thing in my life. I know I hurt you, and I regret it every day. Sophie nodded slowly. Yes, you are a fool. But I'm no longer angry. In fact, I'm grateful. Marcus blinked. Grateful? Yes, she said softly. Because your betrayal forced me to find myself again. And I found more than that. I found peace. And maybe a love. He looked down. I wish I could undo it all. You can't, Sophie said gently. But you can learn from it. Then she stood up, picked up her handbag, and said her final words. I hope you treat the next woman better. Goodbye, Marcus. And with that, she walked out. No tears. No pain. Just strength. 2 months later, Sophie's fashion brand exploded with success. Her new collection, titled The Real Owner, sold out within hours. Magazines praised her bold comeback. She was featured on talk shows, podcasts, and business panels. People admired her story, not just because of what she went through, but because of how she rose from it. And through it all, Daniel never left her side. One evening, after a successful fashion show, they sat together under fairy lights in her garden. Daniel looked at her and said, I have something to ask you. Sophie raised an eyebrow, smiling. What is it? He took her hand and said, This time, let me be the one who protects your heart. Not because you need me to, but because I want to. She looked at him, tears shining in her eyes, and nodded. Yes. Sophie drove through Brighton one afternoon in her Rolls Royce. The same car Bella once paraded, now polished, shining, and finally respected. But this time, Sophie was not hiding. She wore sunglasses, her head held high, a soft smile on her face.
People waved.
Some pointed and smiled, because they knew who she was now.
Not just a woman who survived,
but the real owner. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel. Like and comment what you feel about the story. Thanks for watching.